For my personal connection to pre-Islamic Arabic poetry, I had a strong visual image at the beginning of the poem and was moved by the thought of the poet longing for someone he misses when he finds her abandoned camp. The American Tribal Society discussed in this poem is one that highly values freedom. Even though in America we have a ruling government and authority, freedom is also the most valued principle. I appreciated the poet's ability to discuss topics ranging from personal narrative to political stories to conflicts of tribes to religious topics to morality in a single poem. And this is not a critique of the poetry, but I know the translation to English eliminates the rhyming elements of the poem, which are important. For Adam, Moses, and Jesus in the Quran, it was the first time I had read actual passages from the Quran, and I thought the idea that it was so many similarities to Christianity was interesting. Many Americans hold the perception that Islam is inherently oppressive to women, so they would be surprised to find the Quran is actually more forgiving than the Bible for women, for example, how Eve was not the cause of Adam's sin. The Quran can be used to explain human nature, but my critique was that the Quran does not present humans as wholly autonomous. Everything is up to the will of God, and many people would take issue with this. For the edicts of Prophet Muhammad, I found myself appreciating the message that it's up to the individual whether or not to behave in a good, faithful manner. And many Americans don't understand the difference between the Hadith and the Quran, and they overestimate the importance of it, placing emphasis on these small details, forgetting it's not sacred like the Quran. It tells about the life of Muhammad, who was a central figure to Islam, but not spoken enough about in the Quran. But the Hadiths are often a strict set of principles that can be very specific about the ways one lives their life and miss the big moral picture. Najib Mahfoud, I was not familiar enough with biblical stories, so sometimes, for example, the Cain and Abel connection, it took me longer to find the parallels between the stories. The themes of power, class conflict, secession struggles, and human greed are constantly playing out in American politics. Mahfouz brilliantly took foundational stories and truths about human nature and retold them in a new and interesting way, but I think it could have been accomplished in less pages. For Averroes, I tended to think of religion and philosophy as separate, contradictory principles, so this writing showed the intersection of those principles, which I found intriguing. In America, we technically have a separation of church and state, however, these boundaries are crossed all the time. The writing is concise and gets to the point effectively and efficiently. However, the author does not address areas in which reason and religion cannot be reconciled. For Ibn Khaldun, I took a sociology class last semester and we never talked about him, so it was interesting to learn he was the first sociologist. He repeatedly emphasizes the need for group feeling for a society to be successful, and in America we have seen that disintegration of group feeling, which has led to deep divisions among Americans. He discusses many universal truths and presents them in a way that can be applied to many different societies, but he is repetitive at times. For the Crusades, I found it interesting to learn about the pluralism and encouragement of diverse discourse among Islamic scholars. In America, the way the Crusades is taught focuses on religion as the main purpose behind the invasion, but through this book we can see that the spread of Christianity was less important to invaders as there was no missionary work done. The themes of this book are incredibly relevant to current-day political events, such as Western invasion into the Middle East, but it would have been more interesting if there was more narrative and less like a history textbook. For Tatawi, I've been learning about ethnographic studies in another class, and Tatawi is in some ways a very excellent ethnographer, in other ways he is not. Tatawi describes French people to be hardworking and highly motivated by profit, which is interesting because Americans see France's economy as more socialist and equate socialism with laziness, so there's a difference there. The insights of Tatawi's observations of Paris as an outsider from a very different society are incredibly interesting. It would be hard to replicate it today, I think, but he was not always objective. For the short stories, I found that even though they were sometimes fantastical, they captured human emotions and experiences that I found I could relate to. And I don't think that short stories are highly valued in American society. I thought each story was short, but they were engaging, but some were more interesting than others, and having them in a book together made that obvious. For modern poetry, I especially like the poem I Love You Very Much, that described how the best things in life are the ones that require the most effort and dedication. The poem The Dice Player has the line, "I played no role in who I became," and this idea is that everything is left to fate is contrary to the American capitalistic belief that everyone is capable of success and everyone is personally responsible for that success. The poets are able to convey a story, strong emotion, and significance, all in pretty short poems, but again, the rhyming elements are lost in translation. Overall, as an overall theme for all the reading, I found that the literature demonstrated how there's common ground between the Eastern and the Western worlds that people talk about is so different, and this common ground is human emotion and experience. This is articulated by Ahmed Shawki when he writes, "Even if we are different in countries, but we sacrifice for the same destiny." And I know he was talking about something very specific, but I thought that this can be applied to the idea that the range of emotions and experience is vast and greatly varied. However, in each of these works of literature, we can see how the motivations, challenges, faults, and inspirations of humans can be universal despite differences in religion, moral values, geographical location, or time period.